Don Augusto passed away on a quiet, rain-soaked night. The house was still, broken only by the sound of the old clock ticking in the hallway. Doña Lucia sat beside his bed holding his fragile hand in both of hers. His breathing was shallow, each breath a struggle. She whispered prayers, memories, and words of comfort, even though she knew he could barely hear her. When his hand finally went cold, Doña Lucia broke down. She cried like a daughter who had just lost her father, her sobs filling the empty room. She stayed there until morning, refusing to leave his side. The next day, the children arrived. Ricardo came first, his polished shoes echoing against the marble floor. He didn't look toward his father's bedroom. "So it's done?" he asked bluntly. "When will the will be read?" Doña Lucia swallowed hard before answering. Patricia entered moments later, her eyes scanning the house as if counting what was hers. "I hope father was sensible," she said. "He worked too hard to be careless with his estate." Fernando arrived last, standing tall with confidence. "As the eldest," he said, "the business should naturally come to me." Doña Lucia felt a deep ache in her chest. Not one of them asked how their father had spent his final hours. Not one asked if he had suffered or if he had been afraid. The man who raised them had become nothing more than a ledger of assets. The funeral passed with forced tears and hollow condolences. The children spoke more about properties and shares than about memories. Doña Lucia stood quietly near the grave, grieving alone. A week later, they gathered in the office of Mr. Martinez, Don Augusto's longtime lawyer. The room smelled of old books and ink. The siblings sat impatiently, tapping fingers and exchanging glances. Mr. Martinez opened the envelope carefully. "I, Augusto Enrique Ferreira, being of sound mind and judgment—" "Skip the formalities," Ricardo interrupted. The lawyer continued calmly. "I leave 3% of my fortune to my son, Ricardo." Ricardo stood up, face red. 3%? That's an insult. "I leave 3% to my daughter, Patricia." Her voice shook with anger. "This must be a mistake. And 4% to my son, Fernando." Fernando slammed his fist on the desk. "We are his blood." Mr. Martinez raised his voice for the first time. "Please remain seated, I am not finished." The room fell silent. "I leave the remaining 90% of my estate, properties, accounts, and investments, to Mrs. Lucia Maria dos Santos." Doña Lucia gasped, her knees trembling. "No, I swear I never knew. I never asked him for anything." Ricardo laughed coldly. "She poisoned his mind." "She manipulated a sick old man," Patricia accused. Fernando pointed at Lucia. "We'll take everything back. You won't get a cent." Mr. Martinez stood firm. "The will is legal. Mr. Augusto made this decision willingly. You may contest it, but the law will decide." The siblings exchanged a glance and spoke as one. "We're taking her to court." They stormed out, already discussing lawyers and strategies. Doña Lucia collapsed into the chair, tears streaming down her face. "I only cared for him," she whispered. "I loved him like family." She was left alone, grieving the man she lost, terrified of the battle ahead, and trapped between guilt and gratitude for an inheritance she never wanted. But the court case would reveal secrets no one expected. Follow for Part 3 to discover who truly won and the shocking reason why.